Hi, McGowan Artist. Today we are going to talk about the artist Alexander Calder. Calder was a sculptor and he started off with this life creating big, beautiful metal sculptures that hung from the ceiling that are called mobiles. And they looked light and airy, but they really took a lot of thought and math to make them balance and stay up high, but look like they're just slowly moving. He also made sculptures that are called stabiles, and those are large metal or steel sculptures that don't move and are on the ground, often outside. If you haven't had time, I do want you to go back and watch the video about Alexander Calder that I put on the main board where you clicked on this lesson. It was right above it, and it tells you a little bit more about his sculptures and a little bit about Alexander Calder. Today we are not going to use metal, but we are going to use paper. And I have a piece of red cardstock here. Cardstock is just a little thicker than regular paper. If you have construction paper, you can try that as well, but the thicker the better. Another idea you can use would be like a cereal box or a box you might have groceries with. It's a little thin, but you can really cut into it and then you can decorate it. You can also paint it. Depends on how creative you want to get. Now, here's a couple that I've already made. These are some stabiles made out of paper. I just made this pink one. I do have this green one. It's a little bit more complicated where I took two pieces of paper and I kind of slid them into each other. And I've got this gray one here. I'm going to show you how to make this simple one and give you an idea on how to do the other one. Now, what you're going to do is, I'm going to fold this down here. You're going to have a piece of cardstock. Or paper, whatever color you want. I chose red because I learned that Alexander's favorite color was red. And I'm going to fold this in half. I'm not going to go too tall, so I'm going to do it more hamburger bun ways and not hot dog ways, because if it's too tall and we're just using paper, it might have a hard time standing up. And then I am going to, as a guide, make a little bit of a line that goes all the way by the fold here. If you can see that. This is just going to remind me not to cut past that line. It's kind of just a reminder, a guide for me. And I'm going to also hold on to this line while I do the cutting in a little bit so that I also remember not to cut all the way through past this line. And then you're going to create some lines that are going to be arced like a rainbow. Think of a rainbow. And they can be a little bit unique if you want them to be, but not too skinny. Not too close together. If you want it to be a little fun, I'm going to make an indent on that one. So I've got my pattern. If you're hesitant to do that, you can always start one for practice and then go back and just do plain arches. That's fine too. Now I'm going to cut on the line. I'm going to hold it with the folded side with my thumb. It just helps me remember to be careful and not go all the way through. I'm going to very carefully cut on each of these lines. And I'm cutting all the way through both parts. So depending on how thick paper you use, it might be a little bit more difficult. So just take your time and really watch what you're doing. This is the part where I wanted to make it a little bit more interesting on top. So I am going to cut this piece all the way off, just like that. And the one on the inside, I also want to cut that so it looks a little open. Like that. And you can also make some changes as you go. Okay, so now I've got this and I'm going to open it up. It's already starting to look like a sculpture, only it's not going to stand up very well. So what you're going to do is fold it back down on the paper, and I'm going to go back to where I made that guide, and I'm going to fold one way, and this back one back ways. this one forward, and then it's match backward. Forward, backward. And then when you open it, you can kind of adjust these back and forth so that it will stand on its own. And now you've got a couple ideas, basic ideas that you can start with. You could glue this if you wanted to make it more stable, or just leave it open. It doesn't matter, whatever your preference is. And then you can add paper to this for decoration. You can color on it if you want to. Maybe I'll make some fun shapes with some scraps I have and glue them on here to make it look a little interesting. And create a fun sculpture. I've got another scrap here. And be thoughtful, though, of how you're going to do this. I'm just kind of doing this a quick idea, and cover it all. You can, like I said, use markers, crayons, whatever, but this is just the start. And here's another one I made earlier that's pink. I use a little bit of a zigzag cut. If you find that they don't stand up very well and they're too tall, you could trim the bottom up off of it. But if you do that, be sure you're doing it all about the same length so they still balance. If I wanted to make this a little smaller, I'm just going to make sure I did it across the bottom so they're all about still the same. So have fun with this, play with this, and make a cool design. Another idea you can do is put a toothpick here and a shape off the top. That's also kind of fun. They would look kind of like a mobile. All right, that's one idea. The more complicated one would be to take two pieces of paper, and they can be the same or they can be different. I'm going to do two orange here. Fold it in half like you just did that one. And you're going to draw on half of this. So tilt this down. I'm going to try to make a neat holder kind of shape. Let's see. Keeping in mind that this still needs to be connected there. And then you're going to cut. With it folded. I'm holding the part where I know I need to keep it together in some way. So I'm opening it up, and this is the shape. It actually looks kind of like a funny person. Of course, this is flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold the second piece. I'm going to make it a little bit more stable. I'm going to put this right on top of it and trace it. And then cut it. So now I know it fits it exactly. For this one, you might want a piece of clear tape. I'll show you in a minute, just to keep them together. You might not need it, but if you have trouble getting them just stay together, tape works well. So now I have these two matching shapes, and I want them to fit together. But in order to do that, I'm going to need to cut a slit. So this one, I'm going to cut a slit halfway from the bottom of the fold. But on this one, I'm going to do it from the top halfway. And then they're going to slide together. Like that. And that is where you might want to put one little piece of tape to hold it together, but now you've got 4 different sides or 4 different types of legs for it to stand on its own. Like I said, it's not attached right here. On my green one I made, you can see where I added the tape a little bit right there on the side. And then it stayed up just as well. And then you can decorate it. I do want you to add some type of detail or decorations to these, whether it's paper, paint, markers. I can't wait to see what you make for me.